Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 54, the podcast where we talk about photography, video, how to make photos, how to make videos, and anything or everything that's got anything to do with any of that. Today, we have another special guest. In fact, she's been on not once, but twice before. Please welcome Hannah Couzens back to the show. How are you, Hannah?
Thank you, guys. Oh my gosh, that's right. Probably people so sick of me. It's the third time I'm on. I forgot about that. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That was the third time. But thank you so much for having me back, guys. It's always so much fun speaking to you. So thank you very much for having me again. And apologies, listeners, if you're sick of the sight of me and the sound of me. But I'm here.
Well, thanks for coming on, because I mean, a lot has happened since the last time you were on the show. Because I remember originally we spoke to you last. I mean, this really is like almost a year ago. Like I want to say about the first time you came on the show was probably about 10 months ago or something.
I think the first time,
something like that. Yeah. And then when we went into the second lockdown in the UK, we made a video where we talked to yourself and a number of other photographers about how to deal with being in lockdown and how to kind of prepare for it mentally, you know, how to kind of safeguard your business, how to get over that fear and everything. And that was, and now we're in lockdown 3.
Oh, it just makes you want to cry, doesn't it?
How have the last kind of 4 months been for you?
I mean, you know what I'm like, guys, I'm brutally honest, and I have hated it. I have hated every single minute of it. I don't know why. I just found this one really hard. I think most people that I've spoken to have said the same. Probably a mixture of things. Of, you know, I think being over winter, and there was a time where we didn't really see an end to it. I think it was like we didn't know. There was so much that was unknown. We had no idea when we were going to go back to work. There was a vaccine, but no one really knew, is it working? Is it doing what it should? It was all these unknowns, and I just found it really, really tough. I had a horrible time. I just don't know. I don't know what it was, but I just really felt like this time around, I was like, wow, I can really see how people's mental health is going to go down the drain in this one. Whereas it kind of last summer, I think we said before, it was kind of a bit easier because the weather was good and we were sort of partially for a short amount of time. It was a novelty. This time around, it was just bang. So for us, it all happened. So in total, it's been 4 months inside and 16 weeks of being totally inside, because we went from where my studio was, we suddenly went into tier 4. So it's weird. So where I lived, which is only half an hour away, was tier 3, but the studio was tier 4. So of course, couldn't go to work. And then like 2 days later, tier 4 happened. And so we were in tier 4 before the national lockdown as well. So before it was everywhere. So, it's just felt never ending. But that said, I mean, you kind of have days where it just, I mean, I'm so glad we did what we did. And, we'd sort of prepped ourselves with work to do. And that was without doubt a savior for us. But even with the work to do, even with something to work on, I just hated it. I just found it horrible. And I think everyone was so exhausted by it. You know, the kind of pub quiz games that you played before on Zoom, like everyone was just so tired of all of it. You know, I think everyone was just like, no one really knew what to do. We didn't really know how to go. We certainly got nothing, no support from the government this time around whatsoever. So we were just hemorrhaging money, seeing studio rent going out for 4 months, not being out, paying for an empty room, not being able to use it, which is a responsible thing to do. And just not having any help whatsoever, which is the same for most photographers. At least the first time around, it was easier. We got a grant. This time around, nada. So how did
why wasn't there another grant in place this time around?
I don't know, Kirsten, unless I've done something like super wrong. But I just couldn't. For some reason, this time around, well, our situation's changed slightly as well, in that we moved premises, so we're subletting. So I don't know whether that sort of falls under the category of we didn't qualify. But certainly when I looked into it and contacted the council, it was kind of like, oh, no, there isn't any. I'm like, well, there was before, so why not now? So unless I've missed something, or it means that our personal circumstances didn't qualify, Yeah, that's kind of how it was. But we just, what can you do? You just have to suck it up and just hope that things get better. And but that's harder to do. It's harder to do when it's the middle of winter and everything feels very bleak and you don't know when it's going to end, and you just see your money go bye.
Yeah, and I don't know how that was for you, Nick, but I didn't expect it to last this long. I mean,
I did.
Did you? Oh yeah, you did. Always.
Yeah, I'm that pessimistic. Insert whatever word you want to put there. Like yourself, Hannah. I felt this was so much worse for some whatever reason. I think it's like you say, all of the reasons you just said, but the two big ones I ended up landing on was that after the second lockdown, you felt like, oh, maybe we're finally going to come out of this and we're going to get back to a little bit of normality. You start thinking about, I need to do that job. I can get that job, that bit of work, that project. And then all of a sudden at Christmas time,
Yay.
Bang. Bang. And that was it was a punch in the gut. And I think that just, it certainly set me back further than I perhaps was prior to that. And we had our 52nd episode recently, so a whole year in, and me and Kirsten were talking about what our favorite episodes were, bits and pieces like that. And one of my favorites was the one where we had yourself on, Tommy on, Dan and so forth, talking about the second lockdown and things we can do to try and keep ourselves sane, productive, and get ourselves through it. And thinking back to that really has helped over this one. It really has. There's some great advice in there, not only for being in a lockdown, but general advice for keeping sane.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I definitely learned a lot from that too. It's great to hear from other people because sometimes you can. And I think that's the biggest problem here is that sometimes we all feel like it's, we all end up in our own, isolation, because that's literally what it is. And you just sometimes get stuck in your own head or your own pattern and everything. But hearing from other people and what they do and how they cope and what they're up to, sometimes does just give you a little bit of an added insight and can give you some better ideas as to what to do with your time and things. So I totally agree with that completely.
Yeah. You know what I found extremely frustrating this time around in this? Actually, there were two things. One, I remember just before Christmas, Nick and me were due to go to London to spend a day just doing some street photography just for fun. We had to abandon that idea because the COVID numbers were going through the roof in London, and so we went to Brighton instead.
Right.
And literally that was our last outing before Christmas, and it was on the cards because the whole tier system had come in and things were like switching from tier 3 to tier 4, and you could see it just all getting out of control, everywhere.
For sure.
And so I think, we knew then that this was going to be the last time we were going to be doing any of this for quite some time.
Yeah.
So it was like, you could see the black clouds on the horizon already. And that's it's sort of a menacing feeling when you think like, uh-oh, this isn't going to go well. And, you got Christmas coming up and you think that that's going to not help,
100%. Oh, it's so true. I think that was, we were very fortunate with Christmas because we were having some work done to the house and we had to move. We moved in with my dad because we just literally couldn't live here. And tier 4 was announced. And I can't tell you how lucky and grateful we were because we lost my mum last February. And my dad would have had to, if we hadn't have moved in there just because of the circumstances, he would have been spending the first Christmas on his own without his wife and no family. I mean, there's so many people that are in those positions. So we were in a weird way, we were so grateful that we'd made that shift. But there's so many stories like that, and it's just you're like, no, what? This, it's the right thing to do, so it doesn't spread, but. How many people just must have had the worst Christmas ever? It was just a horrible, horrible time for everyone, I think. And lots of people were really struggling in their own ways for lots of different reasons too. Yeah. So, I mean, I could not be happier that is there. And I hope we never go back to that.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But the other thing that frustrated me greatly is actually the fact that I discovered Clubhouse.
Oh, okay.
God. I tell you why that's frustrated me greatly, because although I really kind of got into it and it's cool, it's fun, but you talk to all these other people, like these photographers like in California or wherever, and they're like happily out shooting, and I'm sitting there going,
you done nothing, guys.
Yeah.
I know. Well, this is really funny because my experience with Clubhouse is I downloaded the app and I've never used it and I have no idea what I'm doing with it. So it's literally on my phone and I'm like, I don't even know how to use this thing. But yeah, so I never used that. But no, I understand that frustration as well. And I think it's been quite difficult for us in the UK to really emphasize. I think we've had one of the harshest lockdowns.
For sure.
And so I think trying to emphasize just how bad it's been, like sometimes I would speak to my friends around the world and they'll be like, so you back to it? I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
You're having a laugh, right? I'm like, you have no idea. I'm like, no, we can't leave the house. They're like, yeah, but you can go out and see your friends. I'm like, no. Like you just, it's nothing like that. And so I think flipping that, because rather than this turning into something completely negative, although we've all had a horrible time, I also think that somebody said to me, they were like, just think we're going to be the people that got through it. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? That's true. Like, how resilient are we actually, you know, when things like this actually happen? Sometimes it does make you realize or look at things a little differently. And perhaps in the future, when things are not perhaps going the way that we want them to, maybe we'll look back on this time and go, well, at least it's not that bad. So I don't know.
It's very true. Do you feel, not want to keep it on problems and whatnot, but I think it's good to know is that the last couple of weeks have been the busiest I've been in a year, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what I'm facing now? I'm now struggling to deal with the amount of work, even though it's not fully busy, and understanding how to deal with my time again. I've no longer got a concept of being really efficient, getting things done, knowing that I'm going to do this today, that tomorrow, that on Wednesday. I'm finding that really, really hard. So now I'm just making myself exhausted.
Right. Sorry. If I'm distracted, some massive wasp has just flown in, right? And it just came in and then it flew out the window. And I was like, I'm just going to shut the window, guys. And it's back in here again. So don't even think about coming over here. If you start seeing me wallop something, then it's about to die. Okay, hold on 2 seconds. Don't you start trying to get it out. Don't wake it up. But no, I totally hear you, Nick. It's like, I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, so this isn't going to be normal. We've got a new space and stuff like that. So thank God, because we've now got the space to social distance. It's huge in there, which is fantastic. But I was thinking, okay, I need to leave enough time. I need to clean down. I've done this before. I did this last summer, but now, now what am I going to do? And you're right, Nick. Suddenly you're like, okay, right, when am I going to have that turned around by? Because I don't know about you, but my clients have certainly been waiting. And now it's like, go, we need this tomorrow. So there's one thing shooting it. There's another thing turning it round in the time frame that they actually want. So I'm like, okay, back to it. Right. Okay. Right. I've now got to be in that headspace of juggling everything again. So it is suddenly like, it's not a gradual ease in. You're right. I have you had the same, Kirsten? My diary's just been nuts, and sounds like Nick's has too.
Yeah, it's been nuts. I mean, it's been nuts for two reasons. One, I think people have woken up again to the fact that things are happening, and so so that's been new stuff that's been coming in. But also, Nick and we've been working on a number of projects over the last few months in pre-production basically, and then now that's all coming to fruition. But then one of the major factors for me was that I actually kept myself really busy throughout the lockdown,
right?
And I'm now having to basically continue those things and deal with the normal workload at the same time. And so it's just like, Nick, over the last couple of weeks, I've been like, whoa, okay, hang on a minute,
Yeah,
but
100%.
But yeah, I mean, the time management thing, I've always found that difficult. So that's not news for me.
It's nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, which is why I'm bullet journaling, Nick. I've told you this. It's just about, it's working out. But no, I mean, it's been busy. There've been some late nights, and some unfinished projects. But that's, it's all. I think I'm rather busy than not busy because I don't know what to do with myself when I'm not busy. I'm like
the worst person ever when I'm not busy, and things I know that about myself. And I think if you that's why we did so much prep last summer and went out and filmed like maniacs, because I just knew I'm not going to be good if I'm sitting around with nothing to do. And so it's weird. It's one of those things that it's funny you say that, because I remember there was a time where we were trying to get everything finished, all these videos finished. And I remember saying to my dad, I was like, it's just taking forever. I was like, they just seem so relentless. I'm like, I'm kind of getting, I'm getting sick of them, and it's taking so long. And he was like, Han, do you remember what you were like before this? He said, you wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for lockdown. He said, you wouldn't be able to work and do this at the same time. And I was like, he's got a very good point. We wouldn't have been able to create a side business if it wasn't for lockdown, because now being back at work, I'm like, how did we ever do anything before? Because of course you just forget. We're quite quick to forget sometimes, and we forget what it was like before. So yeah, I hear you. When you start a new project and you're doing something else during lockdown, then real life happens again. You're like, wow, how do I do these? So yeah, of course it's tough.
I mean, the other thing that's happened, of course, is, especially in my case, is that I've come to the realization that I needed to make changes in the way that I work. And so the whole lockdown experience has given me the time to actually, take a step back and really think about the way I want to change my business, in the future. Sure. So, I've really pretty much, I've decided I don't want to go back to what I was doing before, in a sense that, I was shooting conferences and I was away for days on end and all that kind of jazz.
Right.
And so I figured that actually, although I still want to do some of that, I certainly don't want to do it to the same extent. Yeah. And so I want to replace that and, explore other avenues. And I don't think I would have been able to do that had it not been for the last year, because I just wouldn't have had, you're trapped in this wheel of misfortune almost, where you're just like a rat race and you're just constantly like this hamster wheel. You're just constantly keeping the things turning, and you keep clients coming in, you keep completing projects, and so it just leads from one thing to the next. And when you're really super busy, you don't really have the time to step out of it and take a step back and get a wider view. Actually, I tell you what, a friend of mine did a really interesting thing, which I loved. He tattooed 24 millimeters on his arm.
Huh?
And so the reason why I did this was basically because he said, like, when things get super stressy and everything seems to fall into itself, what you need to do is take a wider view and get a wider perspective. So he looks at his tattoo and goes like, right, I need to take a step back. I need to take a wider view, put a wide angle lens on and actually look at what's happening. And then armed with that knowledge, I can go back in and make changes. And I just, I listened to that and I thought like, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great way of thinking.
Yeah, that's good. Then that's great. If his tattoo acts as a kind of reminder and a trigger to do that, that's great. Because I think we'll all be. And I was thinking that I was trying to think that as much as possible when we're having these dark days in the middle of February and it's horrible outside. I was kind of like, okay, there will be a time, like, come on, that nothing lasts forever. Things pass. There will be a time where you'll be so busy again, you'll be moaning about it. So just try to get through it. So that's cool that he's got this visual reminder. That's cool.
And you've been
I just wonder if 24 mils wide enough.
That's very true.
What type of sensor is it on?
Well, that's the thing.
Very good. I love it.
Let's go for 11 mil, maybe. Or something like that.
I love it.
So, Hannah, you've been super busy because you've just launched your own brand new learning platform, Learn with Hannah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. Someone's just going to open the door. So finally, it was, it was one of these things that we were thinking of doing. I mean, pretty much, I think, as we knew, as we said in the previous episode as well, is that, last year when all this sort of started to happen, so much of our work was going around workshops. We were kind of doing seminars. We were supposed to go to the US. We were supposed to do all these things. And then when we were sort of looking at the scale of this thing, we thought this ain't going to happen anytime soon. And so we went, well, all right, so how can we find a way to keep doing what we like and to keep sharing information and doing all of this? And so we decided when things did open up again, we decided to go out filming like maniacs to make tutorials of all the things that we probably would have taught on a workshop. Or we also sort of asked people on social media, so what do you struggle with? What is it that you want to learn? What are these things that you're really finding that are a problem for you in photography? And we came up with this list. And like I say, we just went out as soon as we opened up. I think we filmed the first one in July and the last one in before the second lockdown in the middle of October. So because we were working in between that as well, but we were just trying to film, and then we put it all away and didn't edit it at all, just left it, so that we had something to work on during lockdown if there was going to be one. But I think we all knew, like you say, the writing was on the wall. And yeah, it's been great. I mean, we're super proud of it. It's been so much work. I can't explain how much work it's been. But then that said, that is very much about the fact that my partner and I, the partner filmed it, and obviously, we've gone through the content. But we are such perfectionists, and we drive each other mental, because we're like, no, it's not quite right. Oh, hang on, let's just redo that again. We're like, sometimes you have a balance of people where someone will be like, no, that's fine. No, both of us are like, no, I can do that better. No, I can do that better. I'm like, okay. So, but it's good. It's a good thing, but when I'm saying we wanted it to be better, we wanted it to be clear. And I'm sorry. Someone just knocked at my door. The learning part of it, we really did this from a perspective of, this is what we want to do, or we want to create, so that it helps people to be a professional photographer. So it's the tool. We didn't come at it from, we've done a couple of things that are a bit sort of like a bit more out there, but the majority of what we did, we were like, okay, let's show people like what it's like, based on the experience that we have, these 15 years of working in this industry and having a business that functions. Let's show people literally what it's like from start to finish. So we didn't hire, there's a couple of times that we had professional models, but the professional models were for portfolio builds for them. We didn't hire them in pretending that they were normal people. We had normal people. Some of the clients I hadn't even met before, and we just turned up and filmed. We sort of had this like agreement that, are you okay if we turn up and do this? We're going to be filming it. And these people were really cool. They're like, yeah, no problem. So, but I wanted that, because I wanted people to see how I interact with the client, what I say, what I do, how it works for me. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way to do it. Of course not. But it was just I wanted it to be a bit of a fly on the wall. If you've not done this before, or you thinking of getting into another kind of genre or something like that, and you haven't got the experience of it, I wanted to do that too. I wanted to sort of like show people like a walkthrough. This is what it's like to be on location when it's windy and when it's about to rain, and then the sun comes out, and then this changes and then that changes, and it's all over the place. So I wanted to show real life when things go wrong, everything else. So it's been a lot of work, but yeah, we're super pleased with it. We're really, really happy about it. So a lot of work, but worth it.
I'm so amazed by the sheer volume of courses that you've already got on there. It's staggering, from beauty portraits to corporate to flash to natural light, and the list is endless. And within those, you've got so many different lessons or chapters, if you want to call them that way. It is one of the most in-depth tutorial websites to launch I think I've seen in, I can't express how long. It's absolutely stunning.
Thanks, Nick. That's partially my fault. I'm saying partially. It's completely my fault. Who am I kidding? No. But what I wanted is that I thought, the thing is, I'm not ever going to cover a genre that I don't shoot, because that would be hypocritical and ridiculous. So I'm not going to suddenly start showing people this is how you photograph a wedding, because I ain't got a clue. I don't know. I don't do that. But all the genres that I do cover, and it is that varied as well. I thought, our audience is broad. And the other thing is too, in this day and age of how things have been for us, sometimes we might need to diversify a little bit. So maybe we're a family portrait photographer, and we never even considered shooting, corporate before, or beauty portraits, or whatever it was. But now there's a skincare company, and they want to have some shots done, and they would really like you to do it. And you're like, wait, this is business. I don't want to turn down business, but I just don't have any experience of doing close-up beauty portraits like that. So I was like, well, let's just make a tutorial. And I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be sort of like a pick and choose. So you could go in and sort of go, okay, what's relevant to me? And that's why there's two reasons. We didn't want to do subscription-based, because I feel like with subscriptions, sometimes there might be a whole heap of stuff that you're signing up for that you're just not really interested in. It works for some people, of course, and I'm not saying it's a bad model, but for me, I thought I'd rather people just went in and go, that's what I'm interested in, and that's what I want to see. And the other thing too is that we're back at work, as I say, we're real life working photographers. So I don't know if I'm going to have the time to generate content and guarantee people that this month there'll be X amount of videos. I can't do that because I have no idea what's going to land in my inbox in the next hour and how busy I'm going to be. So for us, we just said, right, let's do it. And, my partner and my dad, they're like, why don't you launch it with 5? I was like, nope, the whole lot's got to be done. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, no, it's all or nothing. I'm like, it has to be that either you go in and it's all there or there's nothing there. I was like, what's the point in launching with 5 or 3? And they were like, because maybe it's a start for people. I'm like, nah, it's got to all be done. Yeah. So yeah, I did totally drive them mad, and myself. I fully admit that. But I'm pleased that we did, because I feel like once it was out, it's out, and we can just work with it now and just update things and create more content as and when we want to, rather than promising things for people and then under delivering. I would never want to do that.
You know what's interesting about this really is that pre-COVID, it was always said that if you wanted to run a successful photography business, you'd have to niche down. Like, you have to basically focus on the one thing and become extremely good at that one thing. So if you're a headshot photographer, you got to do just headshot photography, or if you're a wedding photographer, that's all you had to do. And what I'm sensing a little bit now is that people trying to widen what they do a little bit. And whether that's going to work in the future or not is a different thing. But I feel like right now, a lot of people are in the position where it's like, well, I've never shot architecture before, but hey, if that's a gig, I'm going to give that a shot. Why not? And so I think it's a great variety of different tutorials on there. It's because, as you said, if you're like a family portrait photographer and you've never actually shot corporate before, and you're thinking about maybe adding that to your business, then this is it's a really good resource to go and actually learn how to do it.
I hope so. And that's really nice to hear. Thanks, guys. I mean, but we tried to make them affordable. So they're all 40 quid. But we thought, well, we haven't done this, they wouldn't be 40 quid if we were out here to try and make this our income. But we really, and as I'm hoping, as Nick said, I hope that you see that there's a lot of detailed content in there. We even go through to the retouching and sort of everything. Because I was like, do you know what? I always feel like sometimes with things that are out there, there's just that little bit that people keep away and they don't show you. Now, I am not the world's best retoucher by far, and I say that. I'm very honest about it. But I'm like, look, if you want to see how I made this image from beginning to end, I'll show you. And if you don't want to know that, that's fine. Or it might be that you would have done it a different way. But if you really want to see how I did it, this is how I did it. And it works for me. Works for me enough that I have a successful enough business that I'm able to make this my living. Not saying I'm the best in the world by far. I'm just saying that this is what works for me to run a business. And if that's what you want, then great. But I think if the genres, although they seem quite close, some of them, you might think, oh, it's easy. If I do family portraits, I can do corporate. It's not the same. It's not the same, or vice versa, or the speed in which you work, how you work, your direction with people. You're dealing with different people. You can't speak to someone who is very short on time that needs to come in and get this done. You can't speak to them in the same way that you speak to a family member that's bringing their kids in. It just isn't going to work, I know that seems really obvious, but even the whole approach of how you do it, like how the speed, the process, how you communicate, it's all different.
Can you imagine talking to a CEO in the same way you would talk to a kid at a kids shoot? Hi. These
flashy lights are going to go off, so don't worry. One day I might do that just for a laugh.
Oh, there's a video of that.
Exactly. They'll be like, who is this person?
Wicked.
I know all of your courses on there are £40, but if those of you who haven't yet seen Hannah's work, go and look at it, and then realise that 40 quid for one course is an absolute steal for the amount of information and the value of content that's in there. So I highly recommend getting on there and buying every single one of those courses as soon as you possibly can, before Hannah realises they're way too cheap and cranks the price.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Nick. That's super nice. Oh, that's so kind of you. Yeah, I mean, as I say, we didn't, like I say, you can be, of course, we've discounted bundles and we've done the full lot, etc. But, for me, we just wanted to price it in such a way that it helped people, because let's face it, we just don't want to be sort of in a position where it's not like we've all had a hard time through COVID. It's like, we just want to, we thought, we certainly, it wasn't like we're pulling prices out of the air, but we thought, well, 40 quid is the price of it if you went out for a meal for the first time again. But the content, what we wanted to do is give value for money. So thanks so much, Nick. That's really sweet of you to say, but we just wanted to cram it full of information and like there's something else and there's something else and you get to know this and that. Because I would love for people to, and the feedback has just been, I don't know, it's just blown my mind. It's been so lovely and so nice, and that's really kind of you to say. So thank you, because I am terrible at promoting things myself, really.
Also, just for clarification for our international listeners, if you don't know what 40 quid means, it means 40 pounds.
40 English pounds. Sorry, my terrible North London.
Oh, that's right. 40 English pounds. Yes.
40 quid. Yeah, I'm sorry, my North London comes out as...
So, Hannah, tell me, what is that in shillings? I don't know.
Dahlia. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I do apologise for my, the North London slang, it's terrible. Sorry, international listeners.
North London. I used to live in Walthamstow for a while.
Oh, did you?
North London, innit? You know what I mean? Yeah, lovely.
See, that's just me. That's super nice, guys. I really appreciate that, and that's very kind of you to say. Because I haven't paid them to say that, guys. Anybody listening, I just, I spoke to you. I haven't. Yeah, they're not being given anything for this. So.
Official disclaimer: this video has not been sponsored by Learn with Hannah.
Absolutely, that's not.
But Profoto, if you do want to chip in, then let us know.
If I was really smart, I should have thought about that, and maybe it should have been.
Well, there you go. Well, if we've been really smart, we should have thought about this. Never mind. Always glad to help out. No, I mean, obviously, we saw you launch that a few weeks ago, and immediately, we checked out and we thought like, well, this is wicked, So, it's now a pleasure for us to have you back on the show and talk about it, because it's, sometimes things crop up that are really good value, for people, no matter whether they're just getting started and learning, because you've got like segments on there about Flash and about high-speed sync and stuff like that, which could be really useful if you're just starting your photography journey, or if you're at the point where you maybe you're a hobbyist and you may be thinking about, you might want to take it further, maybe you might want to set yourself up as a business and stuff like that. But a lot of the genre switching bits are really useful, even if you've been a professional for some years in a particular field and you're thinking about, widening your approach a little bit. So there's just so much, such a wide range of stuff on there that just makes it a really useful resource, So
that's great, and thank you, guys. I mean, I think I should probably say that we there's a lot of free courses on there too. You haven't got, it's not one of these places that is all about, you've got to buy this and you've got to do this. But it's and how we tried to structure it is that we've tried to have the sort of fundamentals, as it were, available for free. So because what we started to find as we were filming is we thought, if we go into every single little detail and explain this in every course, this isn't going to be very nice for people to follow if they're buying more than one course, because they may already know it and all of this. So what we thought we would do is split it up. So we've got sort of lighting patterns, we've got high speed sync, we've got inverse square law, which actually isn't up yet, but hopefully, we've got to move. So hopefully it will be in the next, week or so. But all those sort of fundamentals that, we thought, let's give everybody this sort of foundation. So if they don't know what high speed sync is, for instance, we don't have to go into it in every single tutorial. We say to people, go watch the free stuff first. And if you want to just leave it at that, that's fine. Hopefully that's something that we may have helped you with. But it means that then if you are watching a course and then we say, right, we've gone into high speed sync, you know what that is in detail somewhere else, and we don't have to break it all down within that tutorial. So you're familiar with it. Or if I'm saying, kind of about inverse square law, you've already listened, or hopefully you've already watched that, and you've kind of got a background knowledge of exactly what we're talking about. So we put some stuff up for free in the hope that it would help people in some way as a foundation before moving on, or just a foundation in general for anyone that's like, hey, do you know what? I haven't really explored that in detail. I don't really know what that means. Let me take a look.
Did you think, what another thing that's really good about this is because it's like a real life photo shoot, and people are literally a fly on the wall and they watch you conduct the photo shoot. It's it's sort of it's partially about the technical, but it's also partially about the communication part of it. And of course, when you're as a portrait photographer, when you're shooting other human beings, the communication is extremely important. I mean, you probably don't need to talk to a still life, but when you have a person in front of you, it's really all about that. And it's really brilliant to see, to be able to see you or to watch you communicate with your subject, because you can learn so much from watching somebody who's really, really good at that communication side of things,
That's really nice of you to say. It's funny because when I was on my work experience when I was 16, which was forever ago, a photographer said to me, he said, portraiture is 80% personality, 20% skill. And I was like, wow, harsh. I was like, but do you know what? Having grown older and understood it a little bit more, I kind of get what he's saying. Because, and he says portraiture, of course, like you say, still life. Yeah. But if you cannot connect with your client, game over. You could be technically the most amazing photographer in the world, but if that connection isn't there, it's written all over someone's face.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can't say, it's definitely not, and I feel like it's not something that can necessarily be taught as such, because I don't say what I'm not doing is going, what you need to say to your clients when they come in is this, this, and this. I'm just saying, this is how I work. So for instance, let's take the family portrait, for example. I'm saying what I do, and I'm talking to the kids. The kids are all sat down. It was in October. They were excited for Halloween. I was asking them, what outfits are they dressed up in? What are they going to dress up in for Halloween? And of course, they're engaged. They're like, oh, they're all telling me. And then the next one wants to tell me. And of course, they're really engaged in their expression. If I was saying to them, just smile, move a bit closer, now smile, smile. No, not like that. No, smile, as if they're going to smile. So it's like little techniques, things that I've just picked up from getting it wrong. And I feel like that's another thing that I want to make very clear is that this is the most honest. These are honest courses. So what comes up, my test shots that come up are the real deal. You are going to see things when I shoot them like that. You're going to see dust spots. If it's underexposed, I'm like, oh, look, it's underexposed. Or I'm going to be like, I'm just going to move that there and see if that looks any good. And I take the shot and I'm like, no, it doesn't, does it? Or I will just do things in real time. It's like you see my brain happening. And sometimes where you think, I'm going to set this light up and just do it. What we didn't do is go, oh, that looks terrible. Let's go back and refilm it again. Because it's like the idea is not to be perfect. The idea is to show the process and to explain my thought process as to why that didn't work out or how I want that to be better. So there is no hiding. There is no smoke and mirrors. Literally everything is a JPEG straight off camera. And you will see dust spots. Like I say, you'll see it all wonky. You'll see what happens for me, and there's nowhere to hide. I'm like, that is real life. That is what happens, and that is what you're seeing. So I wanted it to be very, very honest, and I just wanted people to feel that you're with me on a shoot, and this is real. So if it's the case of that you're seeing and listening how I'm communicating with the client, I'm definitely not thinking about that. That's just what comes out my mouth based on how I am, who I am, and the experience that I have. So hopefully people may take things from that or not. I don't know, but I hope so. Let's hope
they will. It's a whole nother level of value to these type of videos. And, you see, to take any one of your courses, there'll be another course out there that will teach you similar skills, right? But the majority of them don't have that, and I'll use your word, that level of honesty in there. Because you don't always see all the mistakes that happen while you're preparing for it, and you get it wrong. And and to be honest, that makes you feel, particularly when you're learning, that I'm no good. Why are they not making these mistakes? Why am I always making them? It takes me 10 times longer to start getting there. And the reality is that's not the case. It's trial and error.
So right, Nick, and that's lovely to hear, because that's what I've tried to do so much, is try and go back to, and oh man, I still make horrendous mistakes. I still, well, as you can see in the courses, like, or I still do stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't look so great, does it? Oh, that's why. Yeah, and I've got the experience to know why, or I've got the experience to sort of know what I've done. But as you say, to just pretend that you set up and you happen to just put the light in the most perfect place and it was at the perfect exposure, everything was wonderful, and then you go ahead and do it at home. And I also say as well, it's something that's very important to me, that's in the start of all of the courses, is I say to people, it doesn't matter what gear you're using. It doesn't matter. Like, it does not matter at all. Just look up the equivalent of what I'm using. But also, we don't put the flash power settings in. Some people get up in arms about that. And I say, it's a very clear thing that I say to people. I'm like, the reason we're not we put every other setting in, but it doesn't matter, because half the time, I don't even know what the number is on the back, and I don't care. I just need to know, does it look all right or not? But if I say to you, for instance, if I was using a 75 watt second light or something like that, and it's on power level 5, now, if you're using 1,000 watt second light and you put it on power level 5, that is not going to be the same exposure. It's going to be so different. So what's the point in giving numbers and things like that, that you're going to go home and, set this, oh, Hannah had this set to 5 and this one was on 2 and this one. That's not helping people. That's because you need to get to know what you're looking for.
Well, that's it, exactly.
Own equipment. And so that was something that I'm sort of very honest about, and just said, look, the reason why is not because we're holding something back. We want to help you, and it's not a case of just doing it by numbers and it'll all be fine, because every room, every model, what they're wearing, what color backdrop, is all going to behave differently, even if you try to recreate the same thing. So it's learning enough to do it yourself.
It's not only that, people would have different equipment, but, every little detail makes a difference in the way that light behaves. It might be, somebody might have an umbrella has a slightly less reflective surface than the umbrella that somebody else uses. And, and so your settings are going to be completely different. It's, it's tough enough to rely on the same settings under the same circumstances in the same studio every time, because that kind of keeps changing weirdly. I don't know why, but, but certainly, like when you're doing different shoots, you're using different modifiers, different distances from the model. I mean, all of that comes into it. So whether your light is set to like power level 5, that means nothing really at that point.
That's it. And I that said, I do totally understand why people kind of want to know that, because they sort of feel like it's a safety. If I do this and I do the same thing, it will be okay. But I think that's the beginning of the downfall for people. I get it, that it's like, I just want to turn up and put the same settings in and get the same result. But I'm very much, I'm a hard teacher in the sense that I sort of am like, no, I really want you to do it yourself, because the level of satisfaction that you will get when you do achieve it is going to be way above anything else that you would have got just by dialing settings in and hoping for the best. So,
my photography mentor back in the day used to say to me, like, whenever I was like, oh, is this like overexposed? And he was like, what do you think?
Right. That's a good response.
It's like, oh, is this under? Well, what do you think? Yeah. Is it like, is the whatever, is the light up too high? And it's like, what do you think? Is it, do you think it's too high or not? It's like,
but that's good. I think that is a good thing, because, like it's, and I'm very honest about that too, is that I feel like, okay, this is how I'm doing it to create what I'm creating. I'm not expecting everybody that's watching to love everything that I'm doing or agree with me. Or some people might think it's too underexposed. They might have done it differently. They might have, I think it's a bit hot. That's fine. We're all individuals, and that I'm not saying this is the perfect formula. It's like, I'll show you how to get here. From that point, you can pick it up with your client and take it wherever you want to. That's really important, that people can think for themselves and create for themselves too, for sure.
But that's what people need to do as well, is to develop your own opinion about something, right? What you like as a photographer. You could watch one of your courses and you go, God, I don't like the way that looks at this state. I just don't. Okay, that's great. You know that is something that you're not particularly keen on, but you're going to now develop in your own mind, okay, what would I do to adjust what I'm seeing here to put it more into what I perceive as being really, really good? And if you can get people to start thinking that way rather than going, oh, no, that's not the right way to do it, I don't like the way that looks, and then just leaving it alone, you're onto a winner then. Absolutely onto a winner.
100%, Nick. 100%. Like I say, I might have shot something or something might come up and they'll be like, I preferred it how it was before. Great. Because, or they think, I wouldn't have done it like that. I would have preferred it if the light was in this position. Great. I love that, because that's someone developing their style. And as long as they know how to do it, my job is done. It's showing them how to create the results that they want. That's, for me, that is where my job lies, to show people how, give them the tools, over to them to just go make what they want. That's how I want to teach anyway.
It's, you give, what's the word? You teach people how to fish or something like that, and then they go fish. Whatever the saying is, I can't remember. Something about fishing.
You give the man a net, or you give him a fish he eats for a day. You give him the tools. You give him the net, and he eats for a lifetime. So yeah, exactly. Cool. So out of all the tutorials that you filmed, because there's so many different things, which one do you think was the trickiest one to film? Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question, actually, Kirsten. I mean, the most demanding, because we went off to Santorini, which was ridiculous, but it's a place that I've been and photographed professionally. I shot a campaign for Profoto under the immense amount of pressure. So it's real stuff. Again, it's a luxury, but lots of people, in some respects, because it's a destination shoot, but it's still something that I've had to do in my career, and deliver, and really deliver. So I think in terms of because we went all out, like we really tried, we shot in crazy locations. We got up at sunrise to beat the crowds, and all of those tips are in there, where to go and, why and when. And, because of this and that, we're sort of in and out by 9 o'clock before crowds turn up. But the streets are physically demanding, in kind of your up and down hills, carrying the kit, logistics of actually getting it filmed from the right perspective as well, because it's important to us that you can see where the light is, where this is, distance, etc. I mean, it's harsh. The light is, you're never going to photograph in anywhere more difficult, but yet more easy with Santorini. You can have the most incredible natural light if you know what to do with it. But if you want to shoot with those blue skies in the direct sun, wow, that's that's harsh. But of course, it's the physical effort of doing that as well in those conditions and all of that. So that was pretty tough. But in a nice way. I mean, it was like, oh, my heart bleeds for you. You go to Santorini. But I'm like, guys, seriously, we were dripping in sweat, and I was sweat, and I was like, it's kind of, we worked our asses off, but it was because that's what we do. But it was still wonderful at the same time. And I think the ones that have been definitely challenging. I had a shoot in London, a corporate location shoot, and it was like blowing a gale to the point that you would almost cancel in the morning. And I turned up there, it was still windy. This is a client I'd never met before, and then then it was windy, then it looked like it was going to rain. It didn't rain, then the sun broke. What? Now they've got pure sun, but then down there where we're photographing is in shade. Oh no, the sun's gone in again. Oh, the wind's back. Like, it was just, and
that's just a typical day in the UK, by the way, for all of our international people.
100%.
For all of you people who live in Arizona and have sunny skies all year round, that's what a day is like in London.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get, and that means that you kind of adapt. And I hadn't taken anything with me, and that was the other thing. I hadn't taken anything with me to be shooting in the sunshine, because it literally looked like we were going to have to cancel it because the weather was that bad. And then boom, sun's out. So it's, how do I deal with that? How do I adapt? Do I work with it? Do I not work with it? So I kind of, although I'm under immense pressure because I have to deliver, I quite like it because it just shows real life. So, a lot of them were kind of a bit like that. It's like, okay, right, this is happening now. Okay, fine, but that's real life. Yeah, it's how it is. So I like that, showing the side to it where you're just kind of like, all right, this is what we got now.
And that's now another important reason to watch your free tutorials that you've got available on the website as well, because they're all about the fundamentals. And had you been in that situation and didn't have such a good grasp on all the fundamentals, you may have potentially got, I don't know how to handle this situation. I don't know how to go. I don't know how to work in this situation. I don't know what to do to make this now to get a good result. But because you've got such a grasp on all of that, you work it through. You work the problem. You go, okay, if I do this, that's going to happen. If I do this, that's going to happen. But then if I counter it with that, and so on and so on and so on, you got the results still, even though the situation just completely changed.
Yeah, for sure. That's absolutely right, Nick. I mean, because sometimes we've all been there. We've turned up at a shoot and something unforeseen has happened, or you're halfway through and then something else happens. And it's hard sometimes, especially when you're first learning, to be able to adapt, to think, is there a solution with what's just happened, or do I have to stop? And there is nearly always a solution, but sometimes your headspace just isn't really there because you're so focused on communicating with your client, or where should my light be? And, oh, okay, now this has happened. I didn't plan for that. Now what do I do? And, so the other thing is that I'm very fortunate. I've had 15 years experience of doing this every single day of my life, that I've been in a lot of different situations. I still get knocked off my feet and go, okay, but it means that when I have been in those positions, in those situations, at least I've got some ideas for people that perhaps I would never have thought of 5 years ago, for instance. But because I was forced into it, I can say, right, this has happened. This is how I'm going to work with it now, which I would never have thought of a few years ago. So it's a combination, you're right, of having a background knowledge and also a ton of experience and getting things wrong. So, getting things wrong. So hopefully people watching don't have to.
Yeah, the troubleshooting element is really important when you're conducting a shoot. I mean, so many things could go wrong, and things go wrong that you would never thought of planning for, or things that you would never even imagine could go wrong. I remember I was on a shoot. I was shooting a band one time on a location shoot, and I was it was like an alleyway. I had them all posts and everything, and had my 70 to 200. And just as I'm about to shoot, I'm realizing it's not happening. Nothing's happening. And so what had happened was the glass elements inside of the lens had come loose and were rattling around in the barrel. And I'm like, what? What? Out of all the things, I would have never, I mean, that's never happened to me before. It will most likely never happen again. But, and so I had to shoot the whole thing with a different lens, obviously, But at that moment, you're just stumped. You're just like, I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, that's it. And at least you had a different lens. That's the other thing too. Yeah. But I think if that was me, I would have been like, right, if you're broken and you're rattling around, smash it on the floor and really break it. Yeah,
and of course, I mean, at the same time, you've got your client there or your clients there, and you don't want to, you don't want to be like, you don't want to come across as like, you don't know what's going on. So it's like, hey. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I tell you what, I think I'm going to try a different lens on this because I think the background compression is going to be so much better with that. Just hold your pose for 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'll be back in right a minute. And then it's like you just play over. And then, of course, on the way back, you go, flipping heck, that's an expensive bloody...
Sweating and everything else underneath it. You're like, everything's fine, guys. I'm just going to try another angle.
Yeah, exactly.
So space is fine inside. You're dying.
yeah. And of course, you're seeing the dollar signs as well, or the quid pound signs.
Yeah.
Thinking like that lens is going to set me back. That's going to be another 800
more than
quid.
I'm making for this shoot.
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Definitely, I was like in the red for that shoot for sure.
Yeah, it just happens sometimes, doesn't it? Like lights blow over or whatever. With the best will in the world, you try to anchor them down with something, and then look, there's the wind, and you're like, oh great, there goes God knows how much money. But it happens to all of us. And we shot on a boat in Santorini. How none of us or any equipment ended up in the sea, I don't know. But I was kind of like, okay, if we make it to the end of the day without anything or anyone going overboard unintentionally, then that was a positive. But we did it.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah, water and equipment, that's not a good mix. That's what I found.
Oh, exactly. I'm like, but it'll be great. It's shot if we can get it. It's worth it.
Well, yeah, exactly. So we've been looking at Hannah's videos on her Learn with Hannah platform, and one stood out specifically, and that was the high-speed sync video. Now, Nick and I thought, well, we can use these techniques and create our own copy of your high-speed sync photos. So Nick and I went out to the moors and we braved the cold to reshoot your video. And here's what that looks like. Hey, we've come out here to the beautiful moors of Rickmansworth, and we're going to recreate one of Hannah's tutorials. It's all about high-speed sync flash. So since not everyone owns a Profoto lighting kit, we've taken our good old and trusty Interfit Honey Badger Unleashed. It's a radio flash, it should do the trick just fine, but we'll just get going, we'll see what we come up with. So we're going to follow Hannah's instructions step by step, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our camera to 2.8 aperture, and we're going to be at ISO 100. And I'm going to take just a test shot at the typical sync speed of a 200th of a second. So let's see what that turns out to be. So we're getting a white sky, and what that means is we're going to have to crank up our shutter speed quite dramatically. Ah, that's perfect. Okay. So let's see, we're at about, actually we're at about 1250, 12/50th of a second. Let's have a look. Okay, cool, and our sky is perfectly exposed. Now, the foreground's going to be super dark, and that's what we're going to have to bring the flash in. Okay, now our badger is ready, it's all set. We're using a white umbrella, just like Hannah did in her video, and we're gonna set our flash to TTL. It's starting to get dark out here. The sky's got some really nice colors in there, so let's see what we can do with that. We're just gonna give it a shot and see how it goes. Lift your chin up.
That's the best. I mean, that is so good, guys. Seriously, I can't. You got such a good result. It's better than mine. So I'm just like, this is way better. This is exactly what I love. I love it when you get really good results like that. What sky? You already had some nice weather out there. I mean, you're probably freezing, like you said, Nick, but that looks great. You got such a good result. I love it.
Yeah, I tell you what, the sky was cool when we were shooting, but just as we had packed up and we're literally leaving to drag all our gear back to the car, the sky turned into this really incredible purple and pink.
Oh, of course it did. Of course it did.
Yeah. And we're like, and for a split second, I thought, hang on, let's turn around, let's set up again, let's do it again. But of course, by the time we would have done that, it would have been gone. But
when it's like that, it's like that seconds at a time. It changes, isn't it? So
yeah, exactly.
I love what you did, and like that's perfect. That's really nice because obviously with the high speed sync video, that was one of the free videos, or is one of the free videos on the course, because it's one of those fundamental things that once you understand it and you've got that base knowledge, I think it really drastically changes the results that you will get from your photography. Because if that sky hadn't been in all those rich, deep colors, you just wouldn't have been able to achieve if you'd just been exposing to Nick. So especially wearing something dark as well, like it's such a great image. You've got such a great result, and like the work, it looks like you got to that result pretty quickly, and yeah, it's really good. I love it. That's so cool. This makes me so happy. I love it when people go out and get great results having just sort of recreated something, and I love that. That's so cool. Really good.
We had some trouble, didn't we, Kate, to begin with on getting the right power for the honey badger, and it suddenly the penny dropped. Hannah used TTL, didn't she, for that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's kind of my I mean, I think that's always the thing. So I generally say to people, I take a test shot in TTL just because it's kind of, for me, it's just my version of using a light meter. It's like a quick, like boom, like get something, a ballpark figure, then I adjust it from there. Yeah, of course, if some people don't have TTL, the other thing that I say to them is sometimes is just whack it in the middle of the power range, take a test shot and see what you need from there. Yeah. Turn it up or turn it down accordingly. Now, I know some people obviously really much prefer using a light meter. For me, it's just it's one of those unnecessary things for me in my work process that I can just bang it onto TTL, take a test shot and get something and then adjust it and fine tune it from there. But yeah, I can see how when you're not in TTL straight away and you're not really, it's not in the middle of the power range, you might be up a bit, down a bit, back, and that's where you could, make that argument that it would take a little bit longer. But yeah. Test shot TTL, then switch it over, all good to go.
I mean, what was good in a sense was that, I don't shoot in TTL typically. That's just not how my workflow works.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Especially because I don't usually do these. I'm not a wedding photographer or anything like that, so I don't typically do these type of outdoors portraits.
Yeah.
So when I do portraits, I'm usually in a controlled environment. I'm in a studio, and I control everything in my little home studio here. I know exactly what the settings are. I don't really need to think about it. I've done it so many times. But what was interesting was that we were there at a time of day, or sort of late afternoon, early evening, where the light was changing quite rapidly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really surprised. The TTL worked really well. So as the light was, starting to fade, the exposure, and when I went through all the different shots, the exposure really stayed pretty bang on all the way through, and you can see the light in the sky changing over time, like over the space of like maybe 15 minutes.
Cool. So you left it in TTL.
Yeah, we left it in TTL. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So what I did do was I left it in TTL, and I was just sort of adjusting the TTL, because you can do TTL plus 0.2 before whatever. Yeah? And so I was just adjusting it, and then I literally left it in there, and it really just measured really well all the way through. That was really surprising to me.
Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah, I mean, I'd say most of the time I take like a test shot on TTL, then I switch it over to manual, and then I do those manual adjustments. But yeah, I mean, there's totally no reason why you can't leave it in TTL. And I suppose to a degree, this is probably where it might come down to different systems may work a little better in TTL than others, because of course that could. I mean, there's definitely been times, and when you've got to think about it, sometimes. Yeah, that's why I don't use it in the studio as much, because I mean, if you're photographing someone in a dark top and a dark background, it's going to throw way more light at it than it needs, because it's reading the whole scene and going, this is dark, you need that much. And to my eye, I know it's going to overcompensate for that. In the first place. But I mean, if you're out in a scene like that, then I mean, as I say, different systems are like, some will kind of blast it with too much light and people go, well, what's the point then? But for me, the system that I use kind of is pretty accurate, and it sounds like it was for you guys too. So it's quite nice to just kind of pop it on, get a ballpark figure, and then like you say, you can tweak it from there if you need to. But that's so cool. I love that. I love that you got such a great result. That's so cool. Makes me very happy. Very good. Well done, guys.
Yeah. So this is the light that we used. It's quite an inexpensive studio flash. It's an Interfit honey badger. It reminds me of the old Alien Bees, which is why I like it so much. My studio space is really small. Like my camera space is really small, and so. I need something, but I have a really high ceiling on one side. So I need something that I can get as close to the wall and as high up as possible. And the form factor on this just works better for me in this space than flashes or lights that are shaped differently. So quite interesting.
Excellent. Oh, that's so cool. I love it. Really cool. And as I always say to people, it doesn't matter what gear you have, the principles are the same. So and you've just proved that, which is wonderful. Absolutely. So really good.
Yeah, hey, how much does the honey badger set you back?
That's a very good question. Check it out, and the link is in the description. I have no idea.
Save.
It's not. I've forgotten.
Yeah, well saved.
Yeah.
The reality is, I think though, is it's not that much more expensive than a regular speed light, right?
Well, I mean, it depends, because you can, of course, you can. Well, you don't have to spend a lot of money for, let's say, a young new speed light or something like that. I think if you go for like, a Nikon branded, whatever, like a branded speedlight, that can set you back quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
these ones, what I like about these ones is that they're battery operated. They actually, the power, like the battery lasts for quite a long time. They're really great to take on location shoots. Nick, we've taken this out so many times for different. We've
is it
shot
heavy,
cars
Kirsten?
No, not really. No, it's not.
That's cool. That's good.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, it's it's cool. It's got badger on the side. I mean, come on.
And it's called a honey badger, which is pretty cool.
Right, and the original honey badger has to plug in a wall, right, with AC power. This one is the honey badger unleashed because exactly. So no, it works really well. It's it's a radio flash. The TTL, as we've learned, seems to work extraordinarily well. I'm really surprised about that.
That's really cool.
So, I like it. We made a mistake, though. This is the one thing. So there's one confession I have to make, because we, stupidly, I only took one of those out with me, and I had another speed light in the car, and we just thought, it just dawned on me that I hadn't really thought about the kicker light, right?
Was that the royal we, Kay? Just checking.
No, so yes, absolutely, yeah. No, I hadn't thought about the kick light, right? But so we had a speed light which works on a different radio trigger and a different system, and so we were trying to combine that. We also had another strip box, so we, the idea was, okay, well, we could probably just about do it, but that radio receiver just didn't work on high speed, and so it didn't work out anyway. So, but I think we managed to get a pretty cool shot even without a kicker light in the end.
Totally. I mean, in all honesty, the kicker was just there sort of as a really something else that you could add. Just my model Tom. Dark outfit, similar to Nick, but we were we didn't have so much open sky. There was a lot of trees. I mean, it was just a terrible, the location was kind of pretty terrible, but that was kind of the idea with us, is that we were kind of like, well, let's turn up with the most bland sky you've ever seen in a dodgy park somewhere. The park isn't dodgy, to be fair, but it's just like, it was just like a park, and people you can literally see in my test shots, there's people walking their dogs, and there's dogs in the background and stuff. But the point was to just demonstrate that you can do this pretty much anywhere with whatever you have. So that works pretty well. But I mean, and of course, I mean, I suppose that is the thing, that sometimes if you have a seamless system, or you buy into one particular system, then of course it all speaks to each other much easier than it does if you're trying to combine various things. That kind of goes without saying. So of course there's going to be a few things like that sometimes you run into problems, but all in all, I mean, fantastic result. You did a great job, guys. I love it. Really good. Really cool.
The one thing that our listeners and viewers should remember, that although we used a studio flash, we could have absolutely done this with regular speed lights. There would have been absolutely no reason that we couldn't have done that.
Okay, think about what was actually used there. It was the honey badger and an umbrella. That was it. That's all that actually went into that photo in the end from a lighting perspective. That umbrella is, you can pick one of those up for a tenner somewhere. Yeah, you can pick a stand up for a tenner, and you can pick up a speed light for
70 quid,
75 quid. So for less than £100, you've got a lighting setup that would work there.
There was one interesting thing, though, that I discovered, and it's only when I was reviewing the drone footage, because there's one frame where the drone was hovering right above. There's one frame where you can see the flash go off, and you can see exactly the light spill and the shape that the light spill makes from the umbrella. That's very, very interesting.
That's really cool. I love to see things like that. It's 100% though. You're absolutely right, Nick. I mean, it's I was saying to somebody the other day, I think when it comes to gear, a lot of people can get very, very caught up in that. The only reason that I'm very fortunate to have the gear that I do, and mostly, well, that's because I use it every single day of my life. So as you progress and you're making money from your photography, I choose to reinvest it to make my life easier. So little things like, the speed light, sometimes I just even changing batteries and stuff, little things like that. And umbrellas that sometimes you put it down and you put it back up again, and then the thing's pinged out. I mean, I've had them, I've got really good results with them, and I'm there's nothing wrong with kit at all. It's just that if you upgrade and you choose to go for go for the different kinds of brands, and perhaps you make more of an investment. The investment is so that it does last you, because or you just get to the point where I've been on plenty of shoots where things have in previous years I've used stuff which probably isn't the best made stuff, and it's fallen apart on me on a job, or it's been embarrassing when the softbox sort of falls off the front of the light because I'm using gaffer tape to tape it on. I've done it all, and then it gets to a point where you're like, okay, this is the limit where I cannot do this anymore. But that doesn't mean that that's just the practicalities of me picking it up, put it in my bag, travel to the next job, getting it out again, doing this, doing that. I just need it to work, and I need it to be able to withstand the rough treatment as I give it. But you 100% can just, you can use all sorts. My favorite thing as well is making reflectors out of tin foil, out of silver foil. Like, why not, man? It's reflective, it's silver, do it. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So absolutely. I think whilst having gear like that, and to a degree it's a luxury, it's definitely, it doesn't matter what you have, you can get started with anything and make it work, you figure it out.
It's for the longest time I used to run my corporate headshot business solely on speedlights, and the only reason why I switched for speedlights eventually, this is absolutely the only reason, was because I really got tired of changing the batteries all the time. That is it.
So the only benefit with it, of course, is that it probably takes up a little bit more space and it's a bit more heavy to carry now. So there's some roundabouts. But sorry, I interrupted you, Kirsten.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was going to say. It's, you kind of, I think upgrading gear always has to do with like balancing out the kind of convenience with practicality and all the rest of it. It's reliability is a huge thing, because it's fine. Like speedlights are fine when you're shooting 2-3 people in a company. That's perfectly fine. Once you're shooting 40 people, it's a different thing, because then you're going to have to change your batteries at some point, most likely, blah blah blah, and then it just depends on a number of factors. So if it makes your life easier, then that's how I think. If it makes my life easier, then I'm interested. If not, then
your shooting style as well. I shoot like a maniac. So like I'm very quick. I do everything fast. I talk fast. I eat fast. I drive fast. I do everything fast. But especially corporate turnaround and stuff. Half the time people come in and you're like, you need to get this quick because they've got to go on somewhere else. So even little things like recycle time, having something that recycles really quickly enables me to shoot faster to get it done. But again, these are luxuries. These are the reason that I've ended up with the kit that I have. But they're luxuries. They're not. It's not like you can't do it without it, for sure.
It's certainly not a barrier to get started. That's the thing.
Very good way of putting it.
And far beyond getting started as well. It's for years you can work on just speed lights. There's no reason. There's just no reason to upgrade until you get to that point where it's becoming inconvenient with whatever their lowest issue is, if you know what I mean, like changing batteries every 10 people that come through in a headshot session. That's rubbish. You could be changing 3 speed lights at that point.
Yeah. The thing with speedlights was, the thing with speedlights was always that when the battery charge was sort of starting to dim down a little bit, then the power output was kind of inconsistent. So there's another issue when it comes to editing, because you got to adjust for that later on, and that can get a little bit tiring, especially when you're doing a volume shoot, where you can't really rely on the exposure being the same all the way through. That's like,
exactly.
So there's a number of sort of pure practicalities to it. And also, who wouldn't like a bright yellow flash? Come on. It just looks cool. That's the thing.
You'd definitely be seen, that's for sure.
Well, exactly. So
love
it's
it.
so cool.
Really, really cool, guys. I really, really love that. And it's really lovely for me to see, because you kind of, I remember the day that we filmed ours, it was just like, just have to get everything done really quickly. And you didn't have the luxury of choice as to where we went, etc. We just had to smash it out. So to see that, even though we didn't have the most aesthetically pleasing backdrop and stuff like that, it doesn't matter what I did. You got the process and then applied that to a much nicer result, and a great location, and great. So really love it, really cool, and it's free. It's a free course, so just go nuts.
Exactly. But it just goes to show like how much you can learn, from a course like that, and this particular style of shoot, with the sky in the background, you can get some really good results because you can really, using this technique, you can really make the sky look great, and there's sky everywhere. I mean, that would have looked great also on a cloudy night, for example. So you can really get some drama into the clouds and stuff like that. This is fantastic.
Exactly. I mean, I think once I sort of understood the concept of high-speed sync and off-camera flash, it really changed how my photography and my style of photography. Whereas before I was probably limiting myself quite a bit. But it sounds, I always say it sounds more scary than it actually is. Like it's one of those technical things where people start going into. I feel the same with flash duration. I feel like that's another one that sounds like horribly technical, and people are like, oh God, and it just makes you feel like, oh, it sounds horrible. But like high-speed sync, and this is how it works, and it's like, oh, hold on. If you just simplify it, it can radically change your results, which is great. So, and you just proved it, which is great. So really good.
Exactly.
Love it. Well done, guys. Nice job.
Okay, you did the edit on that. Was there anything to note on the edit that's worth sharing?
I mean, the one thing I would say is that, as always, dialing in, making sure that the settings in camera are really where they need to be when you're shooting the image, and you're taking a little bit of time of really making sure that your flash settings are where they should be, will save you a ton of time later on. If I'm totally honest, the raw image coming out of the camera didn't look wildly different from the final edit that you've just seen. There really wasn't, other than the fact that I've realized I've got some dust on my sensor. I've got to deal with.
Haven't we all? Yeah. Well, that's great, and that's another thing that I sort of try to bang home as much as possible is that the more you can get it right in camera. It's probably because I'm a lazy editor. Like I don't want to sit at the computer for hours and hours. Plus I haven't got time to. Plus, I'm like, I want to be out there shooting and making money. I don't want to be sitting there, editing pictures for years. So totally. I think the more that you can get it right in camera and it's looking good, then any edit from there is just a little enhancement or a polish, I would say, rather than like having to rescue something. It's just it's a huge difference. So that's really nice.
The thing I would mention, whenever anybody watches any kind of tutorial video like this, the settings are just ballpark settings. It just happened. It so happened that in the end, the settings that I used were exactly the same settings that you used. So, 1250, shutter speed, blah, blah, blah. But that really was just coincidence that really just had to do with the amount of residual light in the sky. When we first set up, my shutter speed was probably closer to 3,500, something like that, because it was still brighter at that point. But by the time we had everything set up and the cameras were set up, blah, blah, and all that jazz, the light had come down a little bit. So at that point, we were exactly at 1250. Now, you gotta really just look at the basic principles, the idea of taking a test shot, realizing that the sky is blown out, then exposing for the sky, whatever that may be. It may be 1250, it may be 2,500, whatever the shutter speed required to make that sky look good. And you take that as a starting point to then bring in the flash and then expose your subject and then get that level right. And then you balance the two out. So if you can do that in camera and just spend these extra few minutes doing it there, it's going to save you so much time later on when you're editing.
So true. And I think that's the thing initially, whenever you're shooting outside like that, it depends how you're used to shooting as well, but as every part of you wants to expose for the model. Because every part of your brain's going, I can't see them. But it's like, that's okay. That's all right. Because the flash is going to light them up. That's all right.
Exactly. That's right.
Background. So if once you can sort of shift your thinking over for your initial test shot to get those background settings is don't worry about the model. Of course, they're going to be a silhouette, but that's why we're using the artificial light to light them up. But, if you're a natural light shooter or have been up until this point, your gut instinct is going to be to expose for the model and blow out the sky. So that I know some people that make the transition over. It takes them a few goes to go, oh, yeah, but it's too dark. It's like, it's okay. It's all right that it's too dark. We're going to bring something else in. That's all right. It's all going to be okay. So yeah, that's you're right. Once you've got that sort of background exposure nailed and then the flash exposure nailed, boom, yeah, home and dry.
Exactly. And I think, the more often you practice these sort of things, the more accustomed you get with the fact that you're in control when it comes to shaping the light. And that's not only as far as the light power is concerned, but it's also you're in control over how you want the light to fall on the model's face, for example.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I spent maybe 3 minutes doing was, I moved the umbrella so that I had it in the exact position where I wanted it to be, because I wanted Nick to be lit in a certain way. Obviously, I looked at your original image and I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to emulate that as much as I can. And then, I had to move the umbrella and the light stand to the point where I had it exactly in the right position where I could get some feathered light, falling across on the far side of the face, blah, 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 blah. So you spent these extra 3 minutes just thinking about, okay, what's the light doing? Take a test shot, look at it. You're like, okay, where's my shadow? Where's my line? What do I need to do to bring that light over to the other side of the face or something? You move it around. One really good thing in your video, actually, and this is something I feel nobody ever mentions in any of those tutorials, is the ground spill. That, absolutely, because you set it up naturally, instinctively, what I did was I set the modifier up in the way that I would normally set it up in a studio, so
yeah, of course,
and they were kind of probably, roughly speaking, probably at a 45 and 45, 45 degrees and 45 up sort of a thing, standard kind of shot.
Yeah,
I was set up. So, and then, but then I realized I'm actually getting quite a lot of ground, I'm getting a lot of light on the ground. I didn't want that. So in your video, you then started raising the umbrella up. Exactly. And that's exactly what did the trick. So, it's just thinking about all of these different things, like really thinking about, okay, what's the light doing? Where is it falling? How is it hitting the model? What's it doing to the environment? And what can I do to change that in the way that I want it to change, so
definitely. Yeah, I think I'm of a similar kind. When I shoot in the studio, my ceilings are white, so most of the time I'm kind of like angling my what they called lights. Yes, well done, Hannah. Angling my lights downwards. It's going well. So I do angle them down. But of course, when you're shooting outside and doing a full length, as we noticed through that video, I was like, okay, I like the light on Tom, but I don't want to light up a big little weird patch of grass as well, because it just doesn't look very natural and doesn't look so good. So yeah, there's, but I totally get it. And to be all honesty, I didn't always used to do that. It's just something, because my brain wasn't probably in the right headspace to look for it, because I was used to shooting in the studio. But there is this thing as well, is that once we all feel a little bit more comfortable with what we're shooting, that does enable us to then, like you say, Kirsten, look at the light on the face. Look, where else is the light going? Is it affecting anything else? Like, whereas at first you're just kind of so like, is it working? Is it in the right? Is it in balance? Sometimes you don't always think to look for the other things. So again, I think that's just something that comes over time, that you wouldn't necessarily think to look out for that the first time you're out, because you're just going, oh, good, it works and it's balanced or something. But over time, these are little things that I think, that's why I mentioned it. You're always in a difficult scenario of how much information to share at once, because I always believe that you should deliver one message at a time, in order for people to sort of try and process it. So it was a little bit like, but then I thought, well, it's just angling it up a little bit so it doesn't spill on the ground. If that might go over some people's heads the first time around, or they might get it the first time around. Everyone's different, but I'll mention it and hopefully it won't be too confusing. But that's cool. Oh, that's good. That's really cool. But at first you sort of look at it and you're like, oh, this looks all right. And you're like, oh, wait a second. There's this weird patch on the floor.
Exactly.
It does take time. You think of it, okay, where's the light happening vertically? Where's the light happening horizontally? Okay, it's too much in the lower end of the image. Okay, what can I do? I can either raise it so that the light goes higher, or I can keep it the same height and adjust the angle of the light. So you're in effect raising it up as well and just shifting it. Okay, I'm looking horizontally. Okay, it's too dark on one side of the face, too much contrast. What can I do? You move the light around. You just simply move it around, or you might need to twist it. And that's it. That's really all it comes down to. There's not much more than that. And that's the way I think about it. I keep it as simple as possible in my head. Otherwise, I go a bit mad.
100%, Nick. But that is just it. I realistically don't. Well, how you've just described it, I don't think it is any more complicated than that. I think people can sometimes try to make it sound more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's what's happening. It's like, okay, well, is it happening this way? Is it happening that way? The way that I want it to. If not, you know what to do to change it. As long as you know what to do to change it until you get to the result you want. The end.
Exactly.
Finished.
And of course, with experience, you learn different lighting styles and different lighting techniques, and you get an idea of how different modifiers affect the image and all the rest of it. And of course, one beauty dish is different from another beauty dish, and blah blah, and all that kind of jazz. So it pays off to just experiment around with it a little bit. Like I know, for instance, in my studio that when I shoot a headshot and I use sort of a typical kind of clamshell beauty lighting, with a beauty dish, there's two things I look out for. There's three things I look out for really. Like, do I get any highlights on the forehead? Where's the shadow between the nose and the upper lip? Is that in the right place? And how much light do I get under the chin? And do I need to bounce some light back up there? Those are the only three things I look out for. If I've got that right, then I know I'm pretty much ballpark where I need to be. And
exactly. And as you say, over time, the more you do it, the more you pick up on these things much faster as well. So you kind of get to see it quite quickly, and you adjust it much quicker as well. But it's all right if you do your first shoots and then you realize when you get home, oh, actually that's learning. That's learning from your mistakes. And, of course, whilst we would all want to get it perfect the first time around, life is life, and that doesn't always happen. And, sometimes I've learned some amazing mistakes. I've just gone, wow, never going to do that again, which is life, part of learning, right?
Don't you find that you learn more from making 10 mistakes than you do from getting one thing right?
Very well said, Nick.
Do you know what I mean?
You quote yourself and put that on Instagram.
Make a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's just really crap if that mistake happens in front of a client. That's,
Of course. But that's why I say to people all the time, I'm like, whilst you can go and watch a tutorial or, do something like that, I'm like, okay, this is the first part. That's great that you've watched the tutorial, but now you have to go and do that again and again and again and again and again, so that you know it inside out. So you feel so confident in your ability to then be able to go and get the result that you want. Because the next time you're with a client, another part of your brain is going to be needed to direct them, to communicate with them, to keep them doing what you want. And if you're then thinking about light patterns, light spill, exposure, background, posing, communicating, like sometimes you can get completely overwhelmed. So practice.
And the important thing, of course, there, like in a real life situation, when you have a client standing there, I mean, in our case, it was Nick, who was being the model. So that was all cool. But when you have a real client standing there, you don't really want to get stressed out about all the technicalities of it, because what you actually need to do at that moment or at that point is make the client feel comfortable. So that's where you need to be able to focus totally on the client and get the banter going and make them feel, make them chill out, and so they relax. And that's the main focus once you're standing opposite your client. If you then, if you're at a point there where you start thinking about, I'm not sure what the angle of my light is right, you have a problem. That's why practicing all that beforehand is such a good idea. And when you get an opportunity to, to get information in the way that you've done it on your platform, where it's really concise steps that you can follow, then it's just, I think what's proved this to me in our little remake was that it was so easy to do. It was so clear. All the steps were really concise, and we just went out with it. Went like, okay, well, test shot of the sky. Okay, which is settings. Okay, expose for the sky. Brilliant. Okay, now we're bringing the flash in. Yada yada. Move it around a little bit. Move it up. And literally, we were ready to shoot within. I don't know, Nick. How long did it take? 5 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, Yeah,
Not
probably
even.
slightly longer just because it was so damn cold. You know,
Yeah,
some of
we're
us
moving very
didn't have
slowly.
big
And
jackets
you're
on.
filming it and all that as well.
Oh, yeah,
But,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, of course. And no, that's great. I think everyone learns differently, of course, but I'm a very logical thinker and a very visual person. So I'm it's a little bit weird in that respect, but I like to do things that make sense in a logical order. As I say, if you're delivering information, I feel like it should be one point at a time. Yes, those points might affect each other, but if we understand what each of them are doing individually, then we can see how they work together. And also visually, I like to see. I'm not very good at being told, well, if you do this, this, and this, something, this will happen and this will happen. I'm like, well, just show me what that looks like.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's just, but that's just me. That's just the way that I learn. But I think what's nice is that I think a lot of creatives and a lot of photographers, I think we must all learn being visual people, we must learn in a very similar way. So I hope that my translation of how I do things in that kind of it's not like a formula where you can just dial it in and it will work. It's not that. It's the learning process is a step by step. Do this, then don't worry about that, then do this, then stop panicking about the other things, then do this, and then look, you got to the result. Whereas if you start off going, I did this, but wait a second, because we're going to add this in. Now, if we do that, that will affect this. But sometimes that you're just going to end up in such a scramble that you're going to be like, I wish I hadn't started this. So for me, the learning should be like, let's not panic. Let's do this part. Let's worry about the next part, and let's worry about the next part. And magic, we got there. So it's a logical way for me to teach. Sort of, I prefer.
Oh, it's the right way to teach, as far as I'm concerned. It's the only way I can learn. Is to see things in that stepped kind of logical kind of order. And this is why, you know, when I was first learning as well, I was like, all right, so it's 12/50th of a second shutter speed. Okay, ISO 1. All right. None of that's actually relevant at all. The relevant part is that you need to be at 12/50th of a second to get the sky to look like that.
Exactly.
Because that's it. If you need to go to, if you're at 1/50th of a second somehow to get the sky to look like that, then that's what it needs to be. It's as simple as that. The numbers else are irrelevant.
Yeah,
just irrelevant.
So right, Nick. I mean, it's that's the thing with settings is that, of course, it's like it really that's just I say what they are based on what I'm doing at that point in time, knowing that as similar to you guys, if you shoot at that time of day, it's going to change. It's going to change by the minute. If you're shooting a sunset, blimey, you better be on it because yikes, that is changing by the second, literally. So you're going to be like, well, how I started versus where I finished, you're going to be over here. But as long as you know what to do and why, then you're good. So that's it. So yeah, okay, let's say we were shooting a sunset and we're starting off, you know, with a really high shutter speed because it's so bright. By the time we're finished and it's gone down over the horizon, there's still some great color in the sky, but we need to be down at something like a 60th now because we need to let more of that light in. As long as we understand, we know what to do, it's fine. It's good. So I'm really pleased that you mentioned that because you're right. It isn't just a kind of cookie cutting and kind of like copy and paste. It's just like, okay, that's what she did based on those conditions at the time. How do mine compare right now? Oh, it's actually brighter. I need to be at a faster shutter speed. Great.
Do it.
Perfect.
So Nick, which one of Hannah's videos are we going to recreate next? I'd say maybe the Santorini shoot.
Oh yeah. Can we do that can we do that in Slough though?
You might be surprised. You get a good sunny day. I mean, you probably see even at the end of that high-speed sync tutorial, we also did it on a bright sunny day in the middle of summer as well, for complete contrast. You know, we did one in the middle of the autumn and one in the middle of summer. But yeah, I mean, the principles are the same. Get a big blue sky, polarizer, bang, you'll get a great result.
So maybe
can I just say that I can criticize Slough like that because I grew up there. So
maybe we should shoot it as Santorini's pizzeria in Slough.
Worth a go, guys. Get a little big flag.
Let's do it.
Just get a wide angle and bring a little Greek flag right close to it. Like some kind of white polystyrene cup in there as well, and a bit of sky. Now we're getting creative.
I'll tell you what, Kate. No, we'll go to St Albans and we'll make Hannah be the model, so she can actually be in front of the camera for a change. She would die.
I'm off for the rest of the year, guys. You won't see me again. It's my actual. I don't know what. I mean, that's why I said to you, Nick, like, it's just well done for being a model, because I can't stand it. It makes me so uncomfortable. But that said, that's a reason to do it as well, because I feel like sometimes when it's like if I've got to have like another media shot taken or something and my partner's doing it, I'm like, I hate this, I hate everything about it. And it just reminds you how your clients feel. I got a really nice email the other day, or it was actually a tweet that a guy had put out to say that he was quite nervous on his arrival, but by the time he left, he completely turned it around and he was really pleased with his photos. But not to say that to blow my own trumpet. What I was fascinated by is there was a big, tall, confident guy walked through the door. I didn't pick up a sense that he was nervous, nothing. And then he goes and puts that out on a public platform to say that he was nervous. I was like, wow, is this the same guy? Because he hid it so well that I was like, wow, if he was nervous, he seemed fine when he came in. So it just shows us sometimes people are good at covering up. I mean, due to the nature of his job, he's probably very good at covering up, how he's actually feeling and just, doing it anyway. But it is good for us sometimes to go the other side of the camera to remind ourselves that it's quite intimidating having your pitch done. It's just being the other side, isn't it? Don't know.
Absolutely. So what I've heard there is that you will be in front of the camera for it.
I mean, I think you might just be selectively picking bits there.
I'm joking.
You probably have to, drag me kicking and screaming. But I mean, never say never, guys. You've got to put your money where your mouth is sometimes.
So whilst we're going to be thinking about which other photographic technique we're going to copy next, Hannah, what else is there for people to experience and to learn on your Learn with Hannah platform?
Well, I mean, to start off with, I would say to everyone listening, there's free stuff on there. As I've probably mentioned before, the fundamentals are the free courses, and they are literally free. So we've got high-speed sync, we've got light patterns, inverse square law. We'll be adding to those as well. But in terms of, we've just broken it up into different genres. So it can be anything from there's corporate work on there, there's athletes, there's building a model portfolio, there's beauty headshots, so shooting in the summer, like a family portrait outside in a lavender field. Like there's literally all sorts of things that are covered. And I wanted it that way so that, it can be quite selective over what it is that you particularly want to learn. And also, definitely check out the free stuff because it's free, and who doesn't love free? But also for any of your listeners as well, we have got a discount code. So all you have to do is just go ahead and go through the checkout process of whichever course that you wanted to buy. And then right at the end, there's a little box where you can say, when you've got a promotional code. If you pop into that box, camera shake 10, and that is the digits, so all lowercase, camera shake and then 10. That will take 10% off for any of your listeners as well. So it makes it even cheaper, which is what's not to love about that.
Okay, fantastic.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So remember, go over to Hannah's website. The website is learnwithhannah.com. Is that right?
That's it. Perfect.
Perfect. So head over to learnwithhannah.com, pop in camera shake 10 and you get to save 10%, which is wicked. Now, whilst you're at it and you're typing along in your browser, why don't you head over to camerashakepodcast.com, hit the join our community button and join us, because we've got lots of goodies coming up for you too. That'd be awesome. You'd be part of one awesome fraternity, community. Lots of stuff happening in the future. And once we're out of this lockdown shebang, and once people can actually meet up again, then we're also planning some get-togethers in the future. So, keep watching. Hopefully we see you again next Thursday. That's us for today. See you next Thursday.